Enterprise TV, a tradition of truth.
Well, is there anything to debunk in that report? The report is based on facts and figures, so you can say it's a very factual report. And the New York Times has only re-echoed the sentiments shared by most Nigerians about the failure of this government to point a direction. Yes, we know that so many things had gone bad, especially under the regime of Muhammad Buhari. But the most critical aspect of it, which worries most Nigerians, is that the current government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu doesn't seem to have a defined direction on how to pull the country out of the doldrums. And that is why, instead of things getting better as expected, 1 year after his inauguration, things are getting worse. And of course, you know that, that the three most important necessities of life, food, clothing, and shelter, essentially food and shelter, they have become almost unavailable to Nigerians. And those that are available are extremely very costly. And many Nigerians cannot afford basic necessities of food. And that should worry anybody. So there's nothing to defend in that, or rather to argue in that report. Rather, what government should do is to take the report, look at it critically, because that shows that locally and internationally, the cries of Nigerians have gotten to high heavens. In the first instance, what has caused the problem is essentially insecurity. Insecurity. Because insecurity has terribly and adversely affected our capacity to produce, especially when you talk about production of food. Farmers can't farm, and if they can't farm, there can be harvest. There's planting season, there's harvest season. If you don't plant, you don't harvest. And if you don't harvest, you go hungry. And that's exactly what is happening to Nigeria. And what the government should do, which the government is not doing, and which has drawn a lot of criticisms against the government policies, is the optics. The government is not giving impression that they understand the sufferings in the land. They are not. Look, when you fritter away your resources, you can't eat your cake and say have it in your hands. It's an old saying. It is the same money that you waste that you would have deployed to productive venture. Government has not started deploying resources to productivity. And that is what is worrying anybody. Yes, you cannot continue the sing song that you inherited a bad government. You said you knew. Mr. President assured Nigerians that he knew what he was applying for and that he knew how to solve it and that he will bring the solution in no time. 1 year down the line, not only that there's no solution, there is no gateway to solution. Not only there is no path to getting that solution. That is even what is worrisome. Instead, what you see is that government officials are living larger than life. It is that same resources, the same resources that would have been used for productivity, that is being used for flamboyancy. Both don't go together. And that is where the parable of the prodigal son vis-a-vis his own brother is very important. This man is giving 1 million. This man is giving 1 million. The other one deployed his 1 million to productivity. The other one deployed his 1 million to extravagant and flamboyant living. The man that deployed his own 1 million to productivity comes back to the result. The other one, at a point, would be reduced to zero and he would go begging. That is exactly what Nigeria has been reduced to. Profligacy over the years has reduced us to a beggarly country. Whereas some other countries that even had problems, but they deployed their little resources, are now beginning to grow. Look at Argentina. Look at Venezuela. Look at our next door neighbor, Ghana. Today, a CD is about 110 naira. If you don't even talk about the issues of exchange rate, talk about the issues of domestic production. How does government have any plan towards robust agri production? None. This is the planting season. You will not hear government talk about fertilizer and other inputs. If you don't talk about fertilizer and inputs, how are you going to harvest when the harvest time comes? Meanwhile, the rest of the world is looking up to Nigeria. Is a very large country. The immediate past president now said, Muhammad Buhari, that we should pay attention to agriculture and population control. His thought about agriculture is hypocritical, utterly hypocritical, because under his watch, against all expectations of the people, pastoralists who are headers sacked all the farmers from their farmlands. Sacked all of them. So, his talk about agriculture is hypocritical. If you talk about population control, population increase is not a crime. We are not bigger than other countries. At least China is over 1.8 billion people. India is over 1.4 billion people. How many are we? Just mere 20 million. Estimated though, because the last population census that was conducted in 2006, said that Nigeria was just about 88.8 million. So it's by extrapolation. This is a country that cannot even count the citizens. You don't know who are Nigerians. So many things have gone wrong. Buhari spent 8 years achieving nothing other than decimating the little peace and fragile democracy that we had. Now Tinubu has stepped in, and then instead of galvanizing energies towards productivity, he's only more interested in attacking those who say his government is not doing well. Oh, we are just new. Oh, we inherited the dead economy. What are the signposts that you have put in place to revive this economy that you say is dead? In July 2023, Mr. President gave a broadcast, and all the things he promised Nigerians, none has been executed. None, not even one. Not even one. That was then the day he said that he was going to provide a living wage for the people. What is living wage? And when you now face the government officials with statistics of the realities on ground, they will begin to say you're playing politics. We're not playing politics. We're talking reality. Everybody go to the market. Everybody sees what is going on. But the government that is supposed to lead the way doesn't seem to understand the sufferings of the people. And that is why I say that the narrative does not show that this government knows what we expect them to do. They don't seem to know. And if they do, they may be pretending that they don't know. Because what is important for a leader is to understand and feel your people and know how difficult things are to them. Because the people in government don't know this.
But they're doing palliatives.
Where is the palliative? Sorry, I ask you, where is it? Mention somebody that has gotten any palliative, just one. Did they give to the birds in the air? Are not meant for human beings? Look around your area. Okay, you are in Lagos. Go to your village, make calls, ask people who have received the palliative. In the days of Muhammad Buhari, he was giving palliative, but he was giving only to the people in the north. Only to people in the north. And the disaster ministry that he superintended under Hadiza Usman, or what do you call that lady's name, that is now noted to have performed woefully and disastrously. The ministry only happened in the north. Oh, we were feeding 50 million children. Where? Even when they were on vacation. So everybody has now seen that the government of Muhammad Buhari was fraudulent and ineffectual. Very, very ineffective government that brought Nigeria on its knees. But President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should have known all this. And his handlers have said that, oh, we inherited dead economy. Yes, we agree. My question is, what have you put in place to revive that dead economy? Are we going to allow the economy to remain dead? Everybody has now seen, even Mr. President himself and his men have now seen, that singular statement that somebody has gone was a misfortune. we all say that subsidy should go. Meanwhile, don't forget that there was this argument whether there was subsidy or no subsidy. Some people say there was nothing like subsidy because government of Muhammadu Buhari at a point when they increased the price of fuel said there was no more subsidy. But because in this part of the world, government is run like a secret organization where people don't know. There's no openness, there is no integrity, there is no honesty, there's no sincerity. So everything that government says, you can take with a pinch of salt until you begin to see the practical effect on ground. That's when you now begin to agree with what government officials are saying, because it is a very terrible culture that has permeated in the administration of Nigeria where government will never tell the truth. It's a very terrible thing. It's only a coward that runs away from truth. There must the government be cowardly. Government holds the whole instrument of coercion. Government holds the whole resources. Government holds everything. So why would the same government that holds everything now be cowardly in the face of the citizens that have elected them to serve them? And if not for that cowardly attitude, why would government officials be telling lies? Okay, you said there was no subsidy. Nigerians agreed there was no subsidy. Yet there was subsidy. Only for Tinubu to now come and say, oh, subsidy has gone, without planning, without putting anything on ground. Yes, I agree that the budget stopped at June of provision for subsidy ended at June 2023. The pronouncement was made on 29 May 2023. But if it was well thought through, there could have been supplementary budget, which would have made some provision, or at least there would have been something put in place. Now, we all clapped. Oh, Mr. President was courageous. He has touched the lion by the tail, and then let us see. You touch the lion by the tail, but you don't have the cage to cage the lion. Now the lion is devouring the people. So the people are now seeing that touching by the tail as being reckless. So if it was not reckless, you would have made provision. Yes, you wanted to touch the lion by the tail. You should have known that the lion will react. Now that the lion is reacting, you have nothing to stop the lion or to cage the lion. The lion is now eating all the people with massive hunger, massive starvation, massive deprivation, and massive frustration. The floating of the naira was right, but I will shock you that even that floating is not honestly and conscientiously being implemented. There is still double exchange rate. There is a duality in our exchange rate. You still have official exchange rate and the market exchange rate. So what have you floated? The whole idea of floating in naira was to unify and remove all this parallelism in exchange rate regime. Unify the exchange rate so that we operate at a straight line. But that didn't work. You still have government exchange rate, which is official, and in that case, when you earn some favor from government, you will be given at that exchange rate. Otherwise, go and source your funds elsewhere. So at the end of the day, it was a pronouncement that still has not achieved its intention. And that is why the naira keeps stumbling here and there. Of course, it would have been a much better pronouncement and a much better policy that would have not only strengthened the naira, but most importantly, would have enhanced productivity. Because when you talk about productivity, there has to be planning. If everything is unpredictable, you cannot plan. Let me take, for example, you want to travel outside the country. You book your flight. If it is August 1, it cannot shift. You're traveling by August 1. If you want to shift it, you have to intentionally make the move to adjust the date. And it is expected that on that day, you will fly. The same thing, you want to invest in any business venture. You have to plan. And in planning, you will know, okay, if there are foreign components of your business, you will know how much it will cost you by way of exchange rate. You will know how much it will cost you by way of import duties and the rest. Go to customs. Their import duties keep changing. They keep changing. So how do you now plan in the economy when the rate of exchange is non-stable, at least for some time, even though it's not supposed to be fixed, but at least stability is different from fixture. At least stable for some time. Prices should be stable for some time. The import duties and the rest of them should be stable for some time, but nothing is stable in Nigeria on account of the policies of government. And I have always maintained, times without number, that it is only productivity that will take Nigeria out of the current doldrums. Only production, nothing more, nothing less. All this idea of import here, import there can never lead us anywhere. Now, government should, having known the value of productivity in our system, should be putting things in place that will enhance productivity. Now, ask the government, what are in place? I just mentioned about the issue of agriculture. Because that one is most critical. When people cannot find food to eat, I mean, that tells you that it is a very terrible situation. Now, you've moved from, dovetail it from agriculture, go to industries, go to the SMEs, go to other services, go to every other thing that has to add to our gross domestic product. You see that Nigeria is lagging behind. And that is why when people now begin to criticize those who criticize government, it's only trying to be unnecessarily defensive. This idea that that attack is the best form of defense, that should be in football field, not in governance. In governance, you listen to constructive criticisms so that you can reshape your policies and programs and deliver the better living for the people. The good brains are there. The first thing the president must do is to shrink the cost of governance. That is number one. Bring down cost of governance. Nigeria's current situation does not tolerate wastages, because it is the same money that you are wasting that you would have used to produce. You see, this idea of sponsorship for pilgrimage, it is a terrible disservice to the economy. Our constitution says this country is a secular state. So what has government got to do with pilgrimages, both of Islam and of Muslims, of Christians, for Muslims and for Christians? What for? There is no reason why government should be thinking about buying more private jets for Mr. President. That is now tearing the polity apart. What is Mr. President doing with more private jets? 2 more new jets, one for Mr. President, one for Mr. Vice President. In some countries that are in the same crisis situation like Nigeria, their presidents fly commercial jets. The president of Kenya the other day traveled for a conference and he came by Kenya Airways. Will anything happen if our president... We are not even asking him to fly. Of course, we don't have any Nigerian air. But we are not asking him to even fly commercial. What is wrong with the one that you had? President Muhammadu Buhari then said that he was going to sell off the 10 private presidential jets in the presidential fleet. Was anyone sold? Eventually none. Okay, out of that, maybe about 2 or 3 must have gone decrepit. And then, but at least, there are at least 4, 5 good jets in the presidential fleet. You recall the other time, the son of the former president took one of the presidential jets to go and play Doba. Eh? Can a country like Nigeria tolerate such a thing? We don't know what the current president is doing with the presidential fleet, but is anything wrong with the one we have? Now, if we have to buy one, now the argument they are now putting forward is that, oh, it is becoming very expensive to maintain, that it has become rickety. No problem. Sell them. Buy new one. But why are you buying 2? Good. We're talking about sacrifice. Mr. President is asking Nigerians to sacrifice. Oh, let's start in our belt. Shortly before he became president, he bought a brand new private jet, which he used for his campaign. If you're talking about sacrifice, wouldn't you advise Mr. President to even use that his own, if the one of the federal government is no longer enough, so that you need to have 2? One, if one is under service, you use the other one. If Mr. President tells Nigerians, I bought this jet, it's mine, I want to use it, for the benefit of this country. And if Jekonde, as the governor of Lagos State, refused to live in government house between 1979 and 1983, he lived in his house at Ilupeju and was driving his Toyota Crown car, personal car that he bought. Today, in Nigerian history, Jekonde was rated as one of the best that have ever governed any state, not just Lagos State. His indelible marks are still there. Since he left, has there been anything like Jekonde housing anymore? Has there been any house for the less privileged? Any house provision for the masses? No. All the roads that we are trying to maintain today that is costing a lot of money, for example, Victoria Island to Ebe Road was built by Jekonde. And all around Lagos, there are Jekonde estates. That is what leadership entails. And I expected that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should be altruistic enough to lead by example, so that when people see his actions, they believe his utterances, and they will now contribute in sacrifice. We don't see any sacrifice from him. Neither do we see any sacrifice from his men, those in the government, in presidency, those in the ministries, those in the legislature. Neither do we see from those in the judiciary. The buck stops on his table. The same way, the paradigm should also stop on his table. The people look up to their president. If their president behaves like a cowboy, the people will behave like a cowboy. The president of Ukraine is not known to be wearing a suit and the rest. Go to Ukraine today. Very few people now wear suit. They want to dress like their president. Once they put on their t-shirt, off to work, they go. That tells you the power of Mr. President, because he is the signpost. He is the sign to show. And that is why they say he is the number one citizen of the country. Why are you number one? That number one means that you have to lead the people, not only in politics, in psychology, but also in emotions. But when Mr. President lives large, how would you now tell the people to shrink their appetite? Muhammad Buhari said that in government house, there will be made in Nigerian foods. What happened at the end of the day? You hardly will see made in Nigerian products in government house. So, the whole thing will now be, do as I say and not as I do. But governance requires that it should be do as I do. The people will emulate you, and the country will move as one. And we get out of this quagmire that we have found ourselves. We are in very terrible problem as a nation in this country. We are a country that cannot feed the citizens. The Holy Book said that a father that cannot feed his children is worse than an infidel. So any country that cannot feed its citizens, it does not want its name. So Nigeria does not want our name as a country, because 150 million out of the projected 220 million are living in abject poverty. So do the statistics, do the calculation, and you see the percentage of people that are suffering. So how can we now say we have a country? Indeed, there was a country.
Enterprise TV, a tradition of truth.